Stop having this. If your truth can only come through this little channel you got going, you're going to miss it. Start listening instead with your inside BS detector, your solar plexus, one of the centers. Somebody said the other day, your energy center, chakras. It's too weird. No, just your energy center. Start receiving it from wherever it wants to come at you from. It comes from every arena. God is an equal, source is an equal, the universe is an equal opportunity inflower. The more open and receptive you are, still detected with your bullshit detector, still feel your solar plexus and your heart and your mind, all three working together. Actually, all the knights of the round table need to be involved in the decision, but Arthur is the heart, the Christos, the center, the crossing, is the final decider. That's the operational human system. We get in trouble when we let the mind decide because it gets bewildered in the hall of mirrors. But all the knights at the round table, why are they different colors? The green knight, the red knight, those are your freaking energy centers. Hello? Not that hard to see through the symbolism. You know, the 7 churches that John sees on the island of Patmos. One of my good friends in Austria spent his Ph.D. research thing on the island of Patmos, that same little Greek island that John escaped to receive his hallucinatory freak-out revelation book, which is hard to read for most of us. But once you start putting on your filters of understanding, discrimination, learn to discern, the 7 churches, hello, that's the 7 centers in your body. So this is the time of decoding or revealing or apocalypse. It's all the same thing. This is coming undone. Yeah, I'm getting off on that a little bit. But I love what you're saying, that if your spirit is saying, make the move now. Now, it's never too late. You can always get on the boat, okay? But there are certain spiritual physics that will make it a lot easier. Instead of digging yourself out of the Mad Max timeline and trying to cross dimensions, why even go to the Mad Max timeline to begin with so that you freak yourself out and get those radiation burns? Don't do it. Follow the intuition now on what timeline to get on, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm also glad that you brought up the island of Patmos and John, because that's actually why I started to wear this cap today. It ties into our previous discussion about secret societies and the mystery traditions and the mystery schools, as well as the island of Patmos.
Wow, really?
So, you know, with the story of Revelation, which some say is the Illuminati playbook, or they say it's the end of times that we're looking at with all the symbolism that's used. And as you rightfully pointed out there, you know, we see a lot mentioned, you know, with the 7 planets or the 7 chakra centers or the 7 hills of Rome that are symbolized there. I just did a video on this exact topic, actually, that I went into much greater detail than I'm going to now. But with this particular cap, it belonged to this group known as the Phrygians, and that's spelled Phrygians, if you all want to look it up. It's called the Phrygian Cap Crown. And these guys were sort of like the Druids. They sort of had their own mystery schools, and they occupied many of the surrounding areas, you know, around the Grecian areas. You could see like the island of Malta. Most certainly they were in the Western Anatolian region, which we call today Turkey. But, you know, they were in the island of Patmos, and they had this book of the Apocalypse. And before I go any further, do you want to tell everybody, you know, what apocalypse means?
Well, when it was a revelation to me, when the Apocalypse actually looked it up in the Greek, and I may be paraphrasing now from what you might actually find out there, but to me what struck me was full divine revelation. It's a revealing.
Yes.
Pulling back the curtain. So I'm like, so we've actually turned the word apocalypse into some horrible end of the world blood scenario, nuclear Armageddon. That's not what it means. It's the separation of the curtain, the revelation, the full divine revelation, walking face to face with your own godhood, encountering the divine directly. instead of through obfuscation.
That's good.
Apocalypse.
No,
Yeah.
that's very good. And when we see the book of Revelation, it's such a mysterious book. You know, you see these preachers out in their fiery pulpits or fiery sermons, you know, preaching the end of the world, saying the Antichrist is coming, and all this horrible shitstorm of things are about to hit us, and we have to just give up now, basically. But the origins of it are really quite interesting. You
Uh,
know, there first of all, you know, the idea that John wrote it. We got to say, well, who was John? Well, this theory came from Justin Martyr, and it was later disputed even in the 3rd century by Dionysius of Alexandria and Eusebius. And then, of course, even when we went further over into Jerome, and even later in the Protestant Reformation, we learned about Martin Luther and Erasmus. They said, hey, wait a second, this doesn't sound right because this book doesn't feel too Christian to us. And the truth is it's not. It was,
yeah.
you know, a whole lot of pagan and ancient astrological symbolism that the Phrygian monks had from this Phrygian religion. And so people say, well, where did John come into this picture? Well, the Phrygians, they served the god known as Ion. Now, the I and the J in Greek are interchangeable. You can literally take the I and add a little tail onto the end of it. So that became the Anglo-Saxon name John, Jon. Or we look at the Johannian mysteries or Johannian mysteries. And today, we even, use Ion, the god of the air or electricity, for ionic water filters or ionizers for our air.
Hmm.
For a positive or negative ion. But then it was Romanized and used allegorically to talk about the corruption in Rome and, all sorts of things. But there's so much mystery that is it's sealed in these texts and so much amazing symbolism there that we can't ignore how important it has become.
Did you actually plan on talking about John and the Revelation?
It's an amazing synchronicity because I didn't tell you that I was
No.
planning on talking about it, and I wore the cap, and then you just started talking about it, which is incredible. It's serendipitous, really.
That's what goes on now more and more anyway, as Carl Jung sowed the seed and the sting of the police sang it. Synchronicity. Ah, there it goes, folks. Oh, my Lord.
It's getting hot.
That might get hot. You're right. Synchronicity is a sign that you are getting into the larger, flow, synchronicities.
Yes.
So this is almost second nature now in my universe because I've been working with this, in a cellular level for a while, working with people. Client this morning, why would I come up with the image of octopuses? And she goes, oh my God, I just had a dream of an octopus. This goes on kind of regularly in my life now. Why? Because the universe is synchronistic. It is aligned. It is wheels of energies and multiple resonance, and this tuning fork starts that tuning fork, and what comes first, the chicken and the egg? You can't, it's paradoxical. Embrace the paradox. Enjoy the strangeness. And synchronicities, at first you're like, oh my God, I had a huge synchronicity. It's a super revelation. It means something. It's very important. I got to do something. No, not necessarily. Sometimes all synchronicity is, that's all it is. It's just showing you that it's synchronistic. There's nothing in your little ego mind that goes, what does it mean? There must be some huge significance. It's telling me I must marry that person. Not necessarily. Right? So more and more synchronicity is just going to be sort of a fact of a more awakened, a more conscious life. What you think about shows up. Did you preconceive it or did you make it? That's your mind trying to figure it out. Enjoy the synchronicities. And these are some of the things that have been really hidden from us, that we've given our power away. There's no power, just hear this statement, there's no power that the secret Cabals or the dark Illuminati, we should differentiate, awakening Illuminati, respectful, open, sharing Illuminati. There's people like that. Jesus is an Illuminati. In the true essence of that word, Buddha, Jesus, Krishna, these are super Illuminati. You want to make a comic book out of it? The super Illuminati, because they are so illumined that they can literally upgrade their physicality into pure light. So there's good Illuminati, or, sharing, helpful, non-enslaving, assistance. So we should make a difference there. And then there's controlling Illuminati that want to, okay, let's make sure the prison planet keeps going because we feed off you guys, the archons and so forth.
Exactly, and that's the thing. These secret societies have been on the planet for a long time. As we were saying in the last video, we can't throw the baby out with the bathwater because there's been a lot of good that's been done. Let's face it, a lot of religions have been started by groups like the Jesuits. Everything in our society that we have has come from somewhere. We don't put a lot of thought, but the symbolism, the words, the lingo, it all comes in from certain areas. For example, we were just talking about the book of Revelation, or the Apocalypse according to St. John. Well, we look in Rome, where the text was Romanized and updated. It talks about 7 hills. Well, you have Palentina Hill, Capitolina Hill, Vaticanus Hill, where the Vatican is. And the Vatican, of course, was built in an area that has not St. Peter underneath it in the catacombs. That's actually Simon the Magus in it. The statue of Venus in the front is actually that they gave it a remodeling. They gave it a makeover to make it a little bit fancier. They called it Saint Mary. Then they when you go in there and everyone's kissed the feet off of the toes of St. Peter, that's actually admitted in their own literature to be Zeus or Jupiter, the ruler of Cassiopeia. But here's the kicker: we know that when we look over into Washington D.C., that this exact symbolism has been taken over there. You have Capitolina Hill, Capitol Hill. You have the obelisks. You have the Duomo from Florence. You have the Washington Dome building. And can you tell everybody about the fasci that are connected to fascism? What that symbol looks like?
If you look, just feel this, everybody. It's hidden in plain sight. It's right there. We have not invented anything new. When you're watching the State of the Union address, and the current puppet head, the current Illuminati control president. I'm sorry. Maybe not this time. Who knows? Maybe we'll see what happens. If you look behind, there's 2 pillars. They're not solid pillars. They're relief pillars, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
But they're Roman pillars, basically. And then there's also the fascia, or the fascia, which where we get the word fascist from. Hello, Mussolini, etc. Fascism comes from the Roman symbol for strength. They would take, was it actual arrows or is it just sticks? I forget.
Yeah, rods.
Rods. They would take a rod and they would tie them together. One rod you can break, like one pencil you can break. If you tie 13 pencils together, very few people are going to be able to break that bunch of pencils. Well, this was a Roman symbol of strength. Together we create strength. So the fascia, when you're watching the president give State of the Union address, there's fascist symbols to the left and to the right behind the president and the speaker and the vice president sitting up there. It's right there, the Roman pillars and the fascist fascia right there. And you hide it in plain sight. You hide it in plain sight. That means no one ever notices. The way you bury Shakespeare's unbelievable truth and beauty is you make 6th graders learn it. They make sure they hate it so they'll never go back to it later ever in their life. It's a great way to hide beauty and truth, is to force feed it to people or have it enough that you never notice it. Like, for instance, this election right now, I was just telling my mom she's an ancient Egyptian oracle, by the way. I've looked at her other lifetimes, and witch, and done various things, but she's very astute, and she's right in there with stuff that you and I talk about politically. Yes. She's right there with all of it. She was just delving into the Bush family and going, oh my God, I just got a feeling. She's intuitive. She's an ancient priestess. She goes, I've never felt that Barbara Bush is actually this spidery freaking entity. She told me that. My mom's not been into any of this. She was married to a nuclear physicist. They were completely atheistic in their life. But she picks up on this naturally. It's right there all around us if you feel into it. Mm-hmm. This is what I was going to say earlier. The only power that the dark cabals have is power that the people have given away. The only reason that the cabals have sucked up the loosh, the energy, the powers, is because when you imagine millions of people going, oh, no, no, I'm just a poor sinner, and I could never levitate.
Mm-hmm.
I could never contact God directly. I suck. I'm born in horrible sin. That's evil. All those powers are evil. Even though Patanjali Yoga Sutras describe in minute detail all the, quote, natural, what we call supernatural, but they're not. They're just natural powers that a human being acquires. For instance, if you make samadhi on the lower third of your lungs, the lower third portion, this is how detailed it's cataloged in Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. Meaning you merge with it, you become oneness with it. You do Eckhart Tolle, no mind, just merging, just being aware presence with it. The power that you receive from that is the ability to walk on water. It's literally that detailed catalog in Patanjali Yoga Sutras. You'll hear the passed on now, God, I'm blanking on his name, the bald-headed guy, Wayne Dyer. He would do a whole thing on PBS that would mention Patanjali, just sneaking it in there. But it's all the powers that we have either not yet acquired. Some humans have not risen to that level yet. But there are many beings on earth that have been gods in the past, which is why Jesus and Krishna and Buddha and masters will look directly at you and go, hey, listen, don't you know that you are gods?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he had a frustrating day that day, Jesus. He just couldn't take it. So I just got to tell him, I can't do this parable crap anymore. Come on. Can't you remember? You're gods, man. Wake up. And everyone's like, Life of Brian. Yes, master, we are gods. Now please tell us what to do. Right?
And then he goes, fuck off. And they say, how shall we fuck off, oh Lord?
But this is true. No power exists with the dark cabals, the denial energies, the abuse of children, the abuse of power, the mind control, the dark projects, the dark space program. Everything that's gone into denial are things that the individual humans have suppressed into their subconscious, into our personal unconscious. Well, you get millions of people doing that. That's a lot of power to vacuum up that you can do shenanigans with. That I'm just describing the basic MO, modus operandi, of dark cabals on Earth. The only reason there's power that they have is because you, the listener, me, Jonny, we have not been willing to receive the downloads and the uploads in our chakras, in our kundalini, in our spinal column river of life. Once that power is back to the people, the cabals wilt. They melt like the wicked witch of the West. They have no power of their own. So you want to get rid of the dark cabals? Set about empowering yourself. Be willing to be a little bit psychic. Have synchronicities show up. Start being able to talk to other dimensions. It blew my mind. Are you kidding me? Fucking gnomes are real. I had a gnome in my yard. And believe me, I came from scientific household family. I was going down the pre-med path and all that. I had a gnome. These are real kingdoms. Why wouldn't they be?
Mm-hmm.
How many stations are on the radio? Uncountable in a sense, as long as you break it down. Well, it's the same all around us. I had a gnome physically lift a hose over a baby apricot tree for me. Physically manifest and lift it. I was like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. I know that's really far out, but if you study Findhorn, the Garden of Findhorn, the main woman that started that got, knighted by the queen because they wanted to co-opt it or approve it. Once you get big enough, that's always how it works. Come on, Beatles, here's your little stars. Be good little boys now, right? It's all real. But if you've shut down, you can only see the visible spectrum,
Mm-hmm.
and you have this natural power to have a third eye pineal gland fully blazing. That power went somewhere. You're playing whack-a-mole with power. You push your power down, it pops up in denial, called Henry Kissinger fucking kissing the ass of 14-foot tall white reptilians who are so psychic. They're like Darth Vader, looks like a fucking choir boy.
That's it.
We're giving our power to it. So the real awakening on Earth is stop eating your Cheetos, stop feeding your energy into the TV, stop being programmed by all that crap, take your power back. And those that aren't going to do that are going to go with their lords. And the lords are going off the planet.
That's right.
Yeah.
No, that's right. It's interesting. When we go look in the Bible, there's all sorts of incredible references in there. Whatever your take on the Bible, if you're watching this, I'm sure you have a valid opinion, whatever it is, whether you study biblical hermeneutics or interpretations of the Bible, whether you have a certain faith or you don't have a faith. It's a fascinating book nonetheless that borrows from Egypt, Hinduism, Jainism, ancient Samaria, all over the place. But it mentions in Ephesians 6:12, it says, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers," which is actually the term they use is cosmocratorus, or the cosmocratorus, principalities, powers of darkness in this world, and against spiritual wickedness in high places. So you could look at, there has always been this idea of some sort of rulers that are in the background, that are working, sort of out I don't know, their agenda, whatever that might be, whether it's light or dark. And when you want to ask the question, is it possible that there could be a hidden hand behind the scenes that could be influencing things? Well, look no further than to look up what Dr. Thomas Woodrow Wilson said. He was the 28th president of the United States, and if you look up his statements, he talked about the fact that when he entered politics, that there was a group so powerful you dare not question them.
I know that quote by Wilson, yeah. You know what's funny? I never write notes down. But you told me earlier today you had written a couple of things down.
Yeah, I did.
For 15 years, I've never written things down. I was doing a talk in Austin a couple of years ago, or about a year ago. My good friend Lee, I don't know if she was just toying with me. I said, "Did you prepare anything today, Tobias? Do you have anything written down to talk to the group? To do the talk?" And I go, "No, I'll never do that." And then I thought I should, and I started to try to write stuff down, and I just gave up after like 2. It was like no way I could do it. I actually wrote 3 things down, Johnny, today. One of them is what you exactly hit on.
No kidding. No, and at the beginning, you brought up the Apocalypse of St. John, the Revelation. That is insane. That is amazing.
I just wrote 3 things down, and one of them was exactly the Christian way of putting it: we wrestle not with spirit and flesh, but against principalities.
Wow, you're kidding. That's what you actually wrote down there.
Yeah, and then I talk about the stealth war, the behind-the-scenes war. It's item number 3 here.
My God.
Yeah, and I basically talk about it's an inner war, a stealth war, inside now. It's shifting, although it will maybe erupt in outer stuff, but even inside the secret cabals, they're interested in prison planeting, keeping us as a prison planet to feed off our energy, our literal life force energy. It's the loosh, they call it, as some people have pointed out. No, I actually saw, and now there's an alliance inside the Pentagon, inside the secrets, inside every secret cabal. There's also now people that are, no, we actually don't want to abuse the planet to the point of extinction. We do want to realize that we want it to come out, free energy and so forth. So there's this behind the scenes, just watched it today, just felt it from just this topic today, behind the scenes kind of tug of war of the old Kabbalists that want to control and suck energy and keep everyone in the dark, and those that want to let it out. And I just felt, it's a stealth war behind the scenes in our consciousness, which is exactly what that quote from the Bible is talking about.
Honestly, it's amazing that you wrote that exact verse down, because it came to me before we hopped on here. I wrote it down too because I was thinking that has to be talked about, and it gives me goosebumps, the fact that you mentioned that just now. But you're absolutely right. There is an inner war that goes on. The true thieves are not the ones at the side of the road. They're going to steal your gold and your silver, so to speak, but they're the ones that are going to steal your mind and your heart and influence your thinking. It's just like the great Michael Tazarian once said, it's not a question of are we mind-controlled, it's how mind-controlled are you. Now, it's very interesting because we know there are various channels that this is done through. And, bringing it back into religion for a moment, a lot of the great religions and different things that came out and were inspired and created and helped along by the Jesuits. And I'm not talking about the actual teachers of the teachings of the great masters.
Now, I want to point out real quickly, there are some aspects of the Jesuits that are really nefarious, some people believe. So
Oh, yes.
we're not saying Jesuits all good. Again, back to part one, if you watched it, nuance, learn to discern, there's good and bad. People ask me, well, are the reptilians good or bad? Or the Arcturians or the Pleiadians? And my standard answer is, are humans good or bad?
Mm-hmm.
Just because all of a sudden you have blue-bodied people from the planet somewhere else doesn't mean, why would they be all good? They may be more, some of them are. They've reached Christ consciousness. But anyway, to remember, so when Jonny talks about Jesuits, we're not fully endorsing everything the Jesuits do at all.
I appreciate you giving that disclaimer, because it's exactly what we have to keep in mind. But when we go back into the Crusades, there's a lot of nasty things that went on during the Crusades. They're not everything that we've been told they are in history. And the Knights Templars, when they went out into Arabia and all these various areas, they picked up a lot of nasty secrets. They picked up, how to do poisonings and whatnot from the Hashashins that were using hashish.
Assassins.
Yeah,
Assassins.
yeah, and little things like when we look at the word church, if someone says, "Oh, hey, I go to church," that's actually a mistranslation of over in Ecclesiastes of congregation. That actually came when you look at the word, the origins from where it came from the English word kirk. And that actually comes from Mother Circe, the Greek goddess, who would take men and drug them and hypnotize them and drag them into her house or her church and devour them like pigs and dogs, quote unquote. And when we look at churches, there's lots of symbolism, sexual symbolism there, from the openings to the phallic symbols on the top to how the priest stands up on the pulpit. And again, I'm not trying to offend anybody here. I'm just taking a look at where these various things have come from. In the last episode that we had done, we talked about the idea of possible singers out there and musicians being what they call Illuminati. People are saying, oh, these musicians must be Illuminati. The biggest one I've heard in the news a lot is people saying the rapper Jay-Z has to be Illuminati because of the rock pyramid that he throws up. Now, that's actually a misconception. And essentially, what's really interesting is that there is a very famous branch of masonry known as Prince Hall Masonry that is reserved for African Americans, the people that comes out of the Philadelphia, which is known as the city of brotherly love because of that. And there's a lot of famous African American Masons, such as Shaquille O'Neal, and you can get many pictures out there that allegedly show, Jay-Z and others doing what they call the grip. And Jay-Z has made mentions of giving people a grip inside of his videos. Beyonce recently addressed this idea over in one of her videos or her songs for Formation. She said, "Y'all haters are corny with this Illuminati mess." And so what I wanted to bring up here is that I think that there's a lot of musicians and a lot of those that are in Hollywood, a lot of big-name actors, as Jordan Maxwell has often pointed out, that the word Hollywood you get from, you looking back to the ancient Druids, they take the magic wand from the holly tree, and we still say today, well, that's the magic of Hollywood. But we know that there's been others that have been under control by something known as MK Ultra. And weren't you just telling me about the Metamorph program from Corey Goode and David Wilcock?
Yeah, that's these are weapons, and we have to face this dark stuff. Basically, the more you can get a hold of innocence, the biggest cloak of deception is to front with innocence, right? Then you have to feel behind the innocence. So if something comes clothed, it's obvious to tell in Star Wars that the ugly old fucking emperor, you don't want to let him babysit your kids, right? It's fairly obvious. But if he can turn Anakin, who's a young, beautiful man, remember in the story he's in love. Yes. If you can break Anakin's heart, you can suck him dry and use him as a front person. See? Because he's still beautiful in a sense, you know what I mean? So I was going to say Hollywood too. That's the magic wand for Harry Potter. His is the everyone else is not allowed to have the Hollywood magic wand, but he is. Right? He's the one
Yes.
who's anointed who can actually use the real. And yeah, I forget what you were asking, but I lost that one.
Well, the interesting part about that too, about this control and whatnot, is that people say, well, who really is pulling the strings? Where does this authority come from? Who is the author of authority? And well, when I talked to Jordan Maxwell about this subject, and again, as we mentioned on the last episode, he's been researching these topics and lecturing on them for over 55 years. And I said to him, who are the Illuminati? Who really are these guys? There's a lot of theories on the net you read about. I mean, this guy must be Illuminati. Is this guy truly
Mm-hmm.
Cabal? And he said the true Illuminati, you'll never see their faces. Even the people that he's talked to and people that have been insiders, they said you'll never know who they truly are. And it's like it says in the Tao, the name that can be named is not the inevitable name. In fact, the idea is that these guys are living in their $30 million houses in the Bahamas somewhere with their boyfriends, and you'll never have a look at them. They'll always be behind the scenes doing this sort of business. But we got to see that when we look around the planet, there have always been certain bloodlines and certain influential families and those who have this sort of self-given right that they believe that they are very special. And they've always controlled all this power and wealth.
Yeah. I wanted to say, my mom was picking up on that psychically today at lunch because I was telling her some stories of a business I used to be involved with where one of my partners, this is going to freak people out, it'll give them fodder for labeling me part of the inside dark cabal. One of my partners was the front man, meaning the advance man. He would help organize things for George Herbert Walker Bush and
Wow.
and Nancy Reagan.
Wow.
I created that business. He had the inside things. It was a temptation for me to see what goes on. We were in Washington talking to lobbyists, talking about military contracts. We were representing a Korean printed circuit board manufacturer, the guy of the royal family. I was just telling my mom this whole story of her son. I mean, she never knew this stuff, right? And it was a temptation for me. We got a private tour of the White House.
Wow.
This is seduction, you understand? And other things as well. And it fell apart because I could feel my soul make a choice. I'm not playing like that. I'm not interested. I can't sell out for the big money like that. Right? This is 1990. When did Reagan end office? Was it 88 or 92? I forget.
Around there.
88. It was one of those two. Anyway, my mom was tapping into the Bush family today at lunch. I was telling her this stuff, right? And she goes, "Oh my God, I never really felt." She said it's always felt creepy. I was telling her a story about Ted Cruz's father, Raphael, like I said, and she goes, "Ah, that's why Cruz feels so creepy to me." She's just connecting it as a direct download, which I suggest to people. This is your direct intuition is the shortcut. Jnana yoga, mental yoga, or wisdom discrimination will take you to the truth. But it requires you to be interested in this, you know. If you're not interested in all the details of it, because that will bring you to truth too. Inquiry will bring you to truth. You can also go heart and solar plexus direct route. Going, that's what your dogs do. They're like friend or foe. They know instantly. They don't have a bunch of fucking checklists. They have to ask you and interrogate you. They don't do it that way. So my mom was doing total direct intuition today as I was sharing some of this stuff. And she's tracking on. I was amazed. We had a really good lunch. It was awesome. And she's right in there, you know, with the whole background thing. And she's just opening up to it. She's like 80 years old, you know. In the last 5 years, she's opened up to what's going on behind the scenes. I told her about Alex Jones today. I said, you got to watch Trump on Alex Jones. You got to watch this guy, so-and-so, right? And she's like, oh, great. I sent her a letter from, I love John Rappaport, and I sent her his deduction, reduction thing about what's going on with politics. And she's like, oh, I love that stuff. So you can know directly This stealth war behind the scenes. You don't need to learn all about the secret space programs and the 5 different fleets and all this stuff and the secret inside wars inside the Pentagon and inside this and that and the other. If that bothers you and you're like, oh my God, it's just depressing to me. You don't need to know all the details. You can help those on the inside of the Pentagon, inside of the Illuminati, that are trying to upgrade it to an earth-friendly, to a sharing of free energy. You can do that. And the way you do that is you decide in your internal, you tell directly Mother Earth, like in ayahuasca ceremonies, if you want to come do that with us, let's do it. And you tell a Father Spirit, or whatever symbology or archetypes you use, tell it what you want. The universe has to honor the desire of a soul. Maybe not instantly. So your biggest prayer is you saying, I don't want mayhem. I want this, and I don't want that. But if you've been told you have no choice, you suck, television is God, your church is God, you don't know enough to go directly to the source yourself, that disempowers you, that power goes to, like I said earlier, to these dark cabals that then can mind control you, create transhumanism, plug in little chips in your head and all that stuff. Tell the universe what you want. Do you like sex? Then tell the universe, I'd like to continue to have some sex. I know I've had some heartbreak around it. It's been difficult. I've been betrayed. But you're going to have the courage to step up and learn a new love. Mm-hmm. A new heaven and a new earth implies a new love as well. Everything we have in the back of my book, which I don't have here, it says, what if almost everything you've been told is wrong? Almost. Everything about medicine, about legalities, about love, about sex, about God, about spirituality, about raising kids. It's all freaking backwards under the dark cabal. So the war is in your spirit. It doesn't have to be a war. It can just be, I want this. Grandma sitting over there knitting her sweater, she's telling God what she wants. That's some powerful anti-dark cabal shit going down over there. You get it? So I want to empower people individually. Say to God if you believe in a God, or to Mother Goddess if you believe in that. Say what you want. Some people go, well, I'm just praying to myself. Okay, fine. But if you're not really there yet, if you can't walk on water, you're actually not yourself fully yet. Get real to heal. So yeah, I did write that down, Johnny. It's a stealth war inside the battle is for humans. We used to say battle is for men's hearts. But it's the battle is for men and women's hearts and souls and spirits. And ultimately, there's nothing wrong with choosing, it's too hard for me to wake up. I want to go with Darth Vader and his equivalents, the actual lords of Earth, and be relocated to another planet. So what? It's a long eternity game. I wanted to say something else. I'm not going to name it right away. But this you named this in the beginning of this talk. You named this person. And I'm going to tell a true story of something that happened to me. So when I was first encountering, seriously, the dark cabals, the dark Illuminati, it made me heartbroken. I'm like, are you serious? This is freaking nasty. Like horrible child sacrifice or rituals and, eyes wide shut and all that stuff. And my heart was sad. I didn't tell anybody. Except Source, except the universe, except God. I said, what's going on? What's this about? 24 hours later, my good friend, who used to work with Dick Gregory, by the way.
Nice.
Whose father was the first black police officer in Louisville, Kentucky. Can you imagine what fucking that life was like? The first black police officer in Louisville, Kentucky. That was his father. And my friend called me and said, guess who I had for a client? He's a shamanic astrologer. He does really interesting astrology. It's not normal astrology. It's about your soul purpose astrology. It's like he goes, I'm not going to tell you about your fucking relationship and who's going to marry you. I don't give a shit. I'm here to tell you who you are and what you came to Earth to do, right? And he called me and told me, guess who I had as a client? This is about 10 years ago. Maybe more, 12, I don't know. I said, I don't know, what's up? He said, I had a 38-year-old woman who works with the Rothschild Bank in London.
Wow.
And I go, okay. And I'm just put out to the universe. I haven't told anybody. I go, tell me about this Illuminati stuff and tell me why I shouldn't be depressed, God, or show me what's going on. And he proceeds to tell me that she is telling him she's coming to him for work, for a shamanic astrology reading. And she actually confides in him. He says, no, there's a bunch of us whose job it is to work from the inside. I go, that's encouraging. I don't tell him that. I go, oh my God, that's really cool. The next day, 48 hours later, I'm not kidding, a famous in the spiritual field, kind of a pioneer, who you mentioned in the beginning of this, so people are going to have to rewind it to figure it out and pick it out. I can't tell it just because it's not right. But you mentioned the name. My neighbor in Sedona is selling furniture at her house. Joy goes, let's go over and look at Venus furniture. And I'm like, oh, fuck, I'd rather shoot myself in the head. Joking. But actually, I like Venus. So I go over. Well, there's another woman there who said, and they start talking couches. I'm like, couches, I don't care, you know. They go, oh, I want that couch. Well, this one woman says to Vina, the white couch, I want it to fit perfect. And Joy goes, I'm looking for a brown leather couch. And another lady goes, I got one of those I want to get rid of. So it's like this, okay, perfect. Next thing I know, I'm driving the truck over to the house of this lady, right? To go get her brown leather couch. Well, the guy in there, you will know his name because you mentioned his name, greets me at the door.
Wow.
Total setup. And Joy's like, get out of the way, where's the couch? And I'm like, hey, it's you, I know you. And we spend the next 2 hours talking. We drive the couch back to our house, and then we're gone for an hour and a half. We're just sitting in the car talking. And he proceeds to tell me that he has had people from the Council of 200 come to visit him.
Yes, he has.
In Sedona. And this is 48 hours later on. I asked the universe, come on, what's up? You know, it hurts my heart. You know, and he sits for an hour and a half and tells me details of, he thought he was going to get assassinated when these guys showed up at this door with 2 bodyguards. This one, an Illuminati son, a young man in the Illuminati bloodline family, comes to his house in Sedona. Says, we know your work. And he says, okay, I'm dead. It's all right. Right? That's his first reaction.
I always wondered if you knew him, because he's just got that same teaching vibe as you in the 60s.
I don't know him. We had that one time together. But it's really funny. We end up with his couch.
Yeah, you're kidding. You got, to this day, you have his couch?
I'm going to go set my ass on it here when we're done.
That's amazing.
And then sometimes people, when I used to run little circles at our house, sometimes people would bring up Drunvalo's name. What the hell? Everybody's going to
you throw his name out.
I know. And I go, sometimes Joey will go, guess what you're sitting on? Anyway, so it was really sweet of the universe.
I would say so.
To within 48 hours, Rothschild banker woman who's on the inside talking about how we're trying to soften it. And this guy that came to visit Drunvalo, he told me, said, we're trying to make a smooth transition.
Yeah.
The old guys some of them need to die off, but we're on board, and we know what you're doing, and we're trying to make this, without stampeding the herd, to have the revelation, the apocalypse, the full divine revelation. So I want to encourage people, if you want to hang every bankster from the tree and bleed them out like stuck pigs, it's not the right approach. The ones that are inveterate, horrible people are going to have to pay for and will be accountable for. This is coming. But the less of your inner rage that you want to take out on them, you need to be outraged, but you need to get your rage out of yourself. Get outraged, but that means get your rage out. And don't hold it in, so you're the quiet guy, going, he was such a quiet boy. He murdered his whole family. You know what I mean? This is my particular helping with people, is to get these old things out. Mm-hmm. And so if you want revenge, and you want to bleed them and stick them and torture them, it's actually not the right thing. This is why every master teacher has said, give unto Caesar what is Caesar's. In the biblical stuff, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. Buddha says it's not your job to exact karma back on other people. It's the same teaching everywhere. So the personal healing would interrupt will interrupt the game of back and forth pendulum. We're in charge, then we're going to oppress you. It's the whole thing, toothless, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth leaves everyone limbless, eyeless, and toothless, like Gandhi said. So there's a bigger nuance here. And when I heard within 48 hours of putting a plea out to the universe, what's going on? That breaks my heart. 2 people show up in my life through weird circumstances, of course. Couches, are you kidding? Who cares? But you know what was weird that time? All of a sudden, couches showed up everywhere after that. It's like the angels touched couches. And I had 3 more coincidences about weird couch things. This is bizarre. The God source, your higher intelligence works in mysterious ways. Synchronicity, allow synchronicity. And it was that for me. So, anyway, Drew and I sat there for an hour and a half, and I had a message for him as well. That was for his upgrade, and about his heart.
That's incredible, and that just goes back to the very message of how all along how these darker groups have used control mechanisms through fear. They have used terrible things in the world, ordered through chaos. To get things done, they've done the problem, reaction, solution, or the Hegelian dialectic traditionally. And so I think what we need to do in this day and age is to start looking at the idea, like we said at during the last episode, that we are more powerful than we think. When we look in the world and we see all these terrible things happening and misfortunes and tragedies and wars, it goes back to a conversation that's talked about that Mr. Rogers, our Fred Rogers, talked about when he was a little boy. He was sitting there watching television with his mom, and as he sat there watching with his mom, he was seeing a terrible accident on the news, and she said, "Look for the helpers. Look for the helpers in the background that are making a difference, that are coming there, the firemen, the ambulance, the policeman that's in the background that's helping people." And that's what we can do. We can be the helpers. And at this time, like you said, not just an outrage, but get the rage out. We can do as Gandhi said and be the change we wish to see and make that little difference in the world, showing random acts of kindness and really aligning ourselves right now on these timelines to the life that we want to live in 2016, doing the things we want to do, paving the way and not falling off and not forgetting about that, never taking our eye off the prize because there's great things ahead. And I truly believe our destiny is in the stars, and we've just begun to learn about things like our ET brothers and sisters, incredible technologies, and so much more.
I just recorded a video last week. They kind of stack up, but I borrowed from Terence McKenna his beautiful little saying, "The monkeys," meaning us, "are going to the stars, folks." Right? That's our destiny. And because we have not been able to accept it, there's been this dark space programs, the fact that we have colonies on Mars, and some of them are slave camps. When it's done in the dark, it's often misused, So there's slave camps. There's human slave camps right now on Mars. I know that sounds crazy. But the secret space programs are true. We have multiple bases on the moon, the Lunar Operations Command, that Corey Goode and David Wilcock are openly sharing at this time. That stuff's all real, but the reason it's hidden from us is, I'm going to come back to it again, it's not their fault. It's your damn fault. You're not ready to fucking hear it. Benjamin Franklin, I love that quote when he says, well, first, when he walks out of Constitution Hall, I think I have these facts right, when they've sat inside there, I can feel it. Here comes St. Germain, by the way. When they were doing the Constitution Hall in Philadelphia, in the city of brotherly love, and they locked themselves in there at some point, I think, to make sure they got it done. There was a mysterious character that was known amongst them all. Now, remember, they're all 33rd degree Masons, right? John Hancock, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, and others, right? That we don't really
all know. Geniuses, by the way, all geniuses.
Yeah. And there's a mysterious man that appears during that summer, and Benjamin Franklin just calls him the Master.
Mm-hmm.
That's all he calls him. He knows all the secret handshakes, but no one knows his name. When they get cold feet, when they fucking realize, holy shit, we're going to sign our life and our property, and we're most likely going to end up swinging from a noose if we sign this Declaration of Independence and getting away from England. They all get cold feet. Well, inside, from what I understand, there's a balustrade or a balcony on the second level. This master that's been there for a month or however many weeks, encouraging them, working behind the scenes, and no one knows him, but he somehow appears, and they all talk about him a little bit here and there. He appears on the balustrade, on the balcony, on the second floor when they all get cold feet.
Mm-hmm.
For 45 minutes, he basically gives a speech that says this is destined. This is part of the evolution of the world. Listen, boys, buck up and sign the fucking thing. That's what he does. For 45 minutes it takes for him to massage their fears out and hypnotize them a little bit so they get their courage back. Or, to encourage them.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know who that guy is. That's Saint Germain. That's Comte de Saint Germain. And he's a real being that I've communed with several times. Now, some people are going to go, he's evil. Yes, there's always the flip side to everything. Now, I don't know how you feel about this, but about Saint Germain, but he showed me one time, and this is, again, direct access. I was with a friend, we were doing this course, and we went into cosmic laughter, and we hit this space of forgiveness. And someone brought up the Illuminati, me or my friend, and said, let's forgive them. And as soon as we hit that level of like not engaging, not velcroing, not battling, not set hard to resist, not evil, like that thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
This purple light showed up in the corner of the room.
Wow.
And Saint Germain talked to me, download. And he said, exactly, boys. That's the magic. That's the key. Don't hate them. Don't want to fight them back. Don't want the revenge. Don't want to get them back. Don't want to string them up in this village square and drain their blood. Don't do that. And now I'm going to tell a secret that I got that day, 10 years ago. I got the download too. He was actually excited because he had two humans that actually clicked in the magic of true letting go, forgiveness, and that would help undo the Cabal's power. This doesn't mean you're a doormat. Not at all. There's time to put sword to the throat, okay? There is. But Jesus could have done that any time, and you got to work with the forgiveness, with the magic portion. Buddha lets the arrows come at him through the air, and as they're coming at him, hundreds of arrows, because he does not resist, they literally turn into flowers and drop at Buddha's feet. To me, that's a true story. Saint Germain was part of starting the Illuminati. He meant it for good. He meant it to try to awaken. The Bavarian Illuminati, Saint Germain was the master behind that. He's the master behind the U.S. Constitution. He's hidden. There's records of him for over 200 years in the courts of Europe, Spain, whatever it was, the kingdom at the time in Germany and the French. He would appear. He created diamonds for King Louis, whatever this, Everyone else was into pearls at the time. Pearls were the diamonds. Nobody cared about diamonds. Saint Germain would manifest diamonds in his palm, and he got the king interested in it. He's also the father of alchemy. He's also Joseph of Arimathea. He's also Merlin. It's the same person.
He always reminds me when I hear of Saint Germain, because we know he's an immortal. So he always reminds me of. Do you remember that show, The Highlander, with Duncan MacLeod? The guy that was just kept going and going. That's what he reminds me of. But what's very interesting about him is that when Manly P. Hall talked about him, and we learn about the signing of the Constitution and this mysterious figure that came behind closed doors and said, "Don't worry about being hung," and all the persecution. He speculated he was a member of secret societies, and I think shows like Ancient Aliens and all these sort of programs out there have speculated that this mysterious figure was extraterrestrial. But what's interesting about that, again, somebody behind the scenes with Adam Weishaupt and the others would be that, nobody has really pieced it together, and that you've brought the puzzle in.
I've not finished the story quite there yet. So Saint Germain pops in because me and Doc, my good friend who played golf pro and stuff, and really good-hearted warrior, probably was a Templar in other lives. We click in and we have a cosmic laughter. And Saint Germain, when we go, Doc goes, "Let's forgive the Illuminati. What a concept! And let's erase them by forgiving them." You know. And Saint Germain pops in, and I actually felt into Saint Germain, or he shared with me. And I'm telling a little bit of it. It feels right. I'm fucking drunk right now on the spirit of it, so well, let's tell it. You know. He says, "I'm here to undo that which I started," because originally he meant it for true illumination, along with Jesus, Krishna, Buddha, and the other women that do it too, the Matajis, the Mother Marys, the Peles, the Ayahuascas. There's many awakened goddesses too. He said, "I meant that for that, but some of my students got power drunk, and they became the reflection of the dark side, the Rothschilds, the original Nathan Rothschild, and all that shit that went down, and the banking control of each country and all that." He was actually there telling me, "I have to clean it up," because I started it. So he got really excited that two dudes like me and Doc actually got it. You know, and he's like, "Oh, that's it, boys, really good. You're helping me." You know, so. He told me, I could feel it, mind transference. He said, "I did start that society. Now, of course, I intended it for good, just like the Templars intended it for good. Just like, the Egyptian Ra people that came in, the Blue Avians, and built the pyramids and ascension chamber. They intended it for good. Did they create some karma for themselves? They did. Because the latter-day Egypt was pretty much fucking demonic magic. Let's be honest, right? Did the Pleiadians that come in and think they're helping the earth? Long time ago, they played gods here. They created karma for themselves. This is the deeper learning. As the higher dimensions merging, they are learning that interference is interference. That's why it hits everybody so deep when Star Trek says the prime directive.
That's it. Speaking of dark magic, Christians will always sit there and condemn people that are doing psychic readings, even though there was divination tools in the Bible with the Urim and the Thummim, and they were using broken arrowheads in the Bible, and there was the Witch of Endor and all sorts of other different examples of psychism and whatnot in the Bible. But speaking of dark magic, most certainly we can't talk about Bible prophecy without talking about Daniel in the Bible. And Daniel was given the name...
By the way, I want you all to notice, Saint Germain is the master of cloaking, and right now he's saying that's enough, move on. I was surprised he didn't mind wipe me on that one. But I just wanted to finish. There's historical records in the courts of King Louis and the Spanish court and the English monarchy where there's letters and records and materials of the Comte de Saint Germain existing and operating behind the scenes for over 250 years.
That's incredible too. I've always been fascinated by Germain, but I didn't know that. That last part, I am gonna look that up. I found that very interesting. But just really quickly about Daniel.
Yeah.
Daniel was given the name Belteshazzar because he was doing some of the darkest stuff you could find. He was in charge of all the Babylonian psychism, and magic, and everything in ancient Babylon.
Sounds like a fucking demon from the Necronomicon to me.
So,
right?
Exactly. Any last words on our video for today? Because we got to come back. We got to come back. We got to talk about ETs. We got so much stuff we got to cover.
Let me see. The outrage. Get your rage out of yourself. It's good to be outraged. David Icke should be fucking honored as a pioneer to get the masses pissed off at this fucking cabals. That outrage that is sleeping in you is depression and is sloth and is heaviness. It needs to come up and come to life. And rage is the fire. You don't get the rocket off the platform without some serious first stage rockets of right? And that's your rage. Your rage is your dragon's breath. It is important that you don't use it to keep the old karmic game or let the cabals use it against you. Use it to clear the air. The dragon uses the fire to what? Clear the decks. conscious rage is really important. But get your rage out of yourself. It's that saying, the truth will set you free, but first it will really, really, really piss you off if you're a semi-conscious awake human. So the people, we have only given our power to them because we've given our powers away. The Cabal of themselves are just like the Wicked Witch of the West or the Emperor Darth Vader. They have no power once we stop feeding them our power that we've given away. So who's responsible for the Dark Cabal? You are, people. I was going to say about Benjamin Franklin, that's where it started. Benjamin Franklin said that beautiful quote, people get the government they deserve.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning the level of consciousness of the people is the good. And right now Americans are a little bit fucking stirred up. They're saying no to the old Illuminati Bush Clinton families and the Ted Cruz puppet stuff. And Jeb Bush, they don't want it. They want Bernie and or Trump because they're fucking a little bit more real. I think that's encouraging. So there's no power that anyone can have unless you've given it away. Start taking your power back, and there's no way the Dark Cabal's shenanigans of depopulation and mind control and GMO and cyborgism and implanted chips, they cannot happen against a powerful person. And the other one was, it is a stealth war behind the scenes. It is against principalities. So when you do it inside yourself, you're going to be helping the allies inside the Pentagon, inside the CIA, inside the secret government, and those Illuminati that visited my friend and that are trying from the inside to upgrade it without blowing up the planet. So step out of the battle zone and upgrade the game. Upgrade the game and don't judge. And again, nuance. Learn to discern. That young man, that woman that's working on the inside. I know a woman in Dubai right now who works economics. She's doing microfinance for African women. And she's telling those billionaire sheiks, because she's a powerful goddess. She goes, you give me your money, you fund my bank, because we're going to help the women of the world. She's doing that. Is she evil because she's working with super sheiks and oil sheiks and getting them to give her millions and billions of dollars? Hell no. She's doing awesome work to empower the feminine, which the African mother is a huge source for. If we can get African women empowered, the whole fucking game's over, basically. We're going to have mother back being able not to be subjugated and enslaved. So look for it everywhere. God's coming in everywhere. Through couches, through very strange synchronicities, mysteries. Allow it to come at you. Be open to it. And learn to feel it. And discern it. Learn to discern. Is that of source? Is that empowering? Even though it might look unusual to you. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, until next time, everyone.
Lovely.
Have a beautiful day, and we'll see you all on the next video.